Okay, we're discussing the Mishnah. Good morning. We're discussing the Mishnah of the things that are asa be'achila but muta b'hana. The first Mishnah was asa be'achila and hana. The second Mishnah is those that are asa be'hana. Asa be'achila but they're muta b'hana. And one of the things mentioned was kavshan. They went ahead and they had the kavshan dakalas is tachyayin, and things they would pickle that they would put wine into it, or chometz into it. So that's in the Mishnah on that's Lamed Hey. So we're discussing that. We are 3 lines in the bottom on Lamed Ches Lamed Beis. The kavshan shadakan is tachyayin. Amachizkia lo yishanu that it's muta behana ela shedarkan, that it's their way to put in, but not necessarily. Aval biyadua, if you know for sure that they're going to put it in, then it's going to be asa. I know it's even the chachamim who say that in the Mishnah that Muryas was muta b'hana, they would agree over here. Afilu b'hana, ma'ishnam in Muryas, the Shara Rabbanon. Why Muryas of a guy did the chachamim permit? Yet if they know for sure the kavshan, it's asa b'hana. Hasam over there by the fish, ba'avuri zuhama. The person is to get rid of the smell. But hacha over here by the kavshan, it's lamtuke taima. So since the wine is lamtuke taima, it would be the chacham would be made it's asa b'hana. Despite the fact they argue by Muryas, they would agree over here that it's asa b'hana. The other way to go is Reb Meir. Reb Meir is of the opinion that it's asa b'hana by Muryas. But Rabbi Yochanan Amar filu b'yadua nami mutar. The opposite way. Even if you know for sure they put in this kavshan, they put in wine, it still would be muta behana. What's the difference in Meir who says it's asr? What's the difference between the pickled stuff that you're telling me is muta behana when you know there's wine in it, as opposed to Muryas where Meir says it's asr behana? Says the Gemara, Amar Aleph Hasam, over there by Muryas Yediyah Mamashai. Over there, you know the mamashas. Rashi says, Shahari matvilin boy. You would go ahead and dip into the Muryas, varoitiv nechal, and you would eat it. Vayayin nechal imoy, and the yayin nesech would be eaten with it. Hacha, over here by the pickled, lo yadiyum mamashin. You're not eating it at all. It's just using as a pickling agent. It's not used to go ahead and be part and parcel of the food itself. You're not going to come to eat it, right? You picture a pickle and brine. You're never eating the brine. You're just eating the pickle. So therefore, over here it will be mutta bahana. One of the things he mentioned was Taurus Trufa, Vitzir Shem Badaga. They had this little fish used to go ahead and swim around in it. There's a tray for fish, but it's interesting enough. If it's a tray for fish, then the tzir is kosher. If there's no, it's not. Then we said chilkis. That chilkis what would be asibachila mutabahana. I said chilkis, my chilik. It's chilik. Amrav Nachman Baraba Amrav Zeus Sultanis. It's the fish called the sultanis. With neima asura. Why is it asa? Because a mixture of dug tummy comes up with it. So if this thing is gahakt, in other words, when they would capture this sultanis in their nets, along with them they would capture treifa fish. If you'd hack it up, you'd have treifa fish mixed in there. So it's mutter b'hana. Tarfis is not asa b'hana, but it would be asa be'achila. Interesting enough, we said chilkus of an umin would be mutter. We said earlier that an umin go ahead, he would take out the dak tummy. I guess it would go ahead and detract from the flavor of the sultanis. So therefore, Tarabonon, ein loy achshav us legada la'achasman. The fish that you bring out of the water, let's say it doesn't have snapir v'kaskeses, it doesn't have fins or scales when it comes out of the water, but afterwards, it would, as it matures, it would kigoin hasultanis. That's why we're discussing this ve'afitz. These are type of fish that in the water they don't have it, but out of the water they do. How is it muta? Again, the siman, the chiddush over here is you don't need the siman throughout its whole life. As long as at one point in its life, it's going to display the simanim of kosher fish, it will be kosher. So even when you take it out of the water, it does not have the simanim. If it developed the simanim, it would be kosher. Yeshle akshav asa lishar. Right? Let's say it has now, but it will go ahead and it would be lishar. You'd lose it. B'shasha oilam and ayam. Kigoin akunis va'apunis kitasponis va'achtasponis va'utnis muta. In these cases, all these fish, they go ahead and they lose it when you take them out. Nonetheless, it's muta, it will be muta. Achas Rabbi Avodah b'kisarei. Rabbi Avodah, he announced in Kisarei, kirvi dogim, the fish innards, the ubarim and the eggs. You can buy in the town, in the marketplace of Kisare, you can buy all these fish innards and eggs. We have a chazaka that the fish found in the marketplace of Kisare comes from these two places, and in these two places it was not dag tame. So in other words, we base it on chazaka that since the fish in this fish market comes from these two places, the rivers Plusa and Aspanmaya, and in those places there's not tray for fish. Memela, we can go ahead and buy the innards and the eggs without having seen the fish. We can machzik that it came from a kosher fish. Kihoda abaya, hait sanchanta. This the sanchanta, the Bov Nara, the sanchanta that came from the river Bov. That's the name of the river. Sharia, it's permitted to go ahead and eat it. My timer, in other words, we know for sure it's a kosher fish. We know for sure, and this tzachanta, Rashi tells us, is the chilik that we mentioned above. It's the fish, the chilik that we mentioned above. Right? Now, we said it's caught with tray for fish. Over here, it seems to be that you don't have to worry about any tray for fish, even though usually it does, and therefore it's asa b'achila. Over here, coming from the river above, you don't have to worry about it, because it's going to be what? Only kosher tzachanta, only kosher chilik will be found in that area. Right? Ilay mishum the redife maya, that the river Bav has strong water currents. Dag tame, even the less lechut hashidra. We'll discuss this tomorrow. And the dag tame, which doesn't have a backbone, and therefore it doesn't have a backbone. It's not able to survive in this current. So you're going to think it can't stay there. Once we do find that tray for fish stay in rivers that have strong currents. Elamishum the melichi maya, it's salt water. I've a dak tamik even less like kalpe beduchte the milchi maya le matzikoi. And you tell me that since it doesn't have scales, it can't go ahead and exist in water that's salted. Well, kachasin in the koi, we see it does exist. So that can't be the reason that in the river above you wouldn't find what? Tray for fish. El mishum le marbetina, because the El mishum le marbetina, dag tame. I think this is pshat. Again, it could be a yom pshat. Tina is obviously like mud. It's mud. Now, I'm not sure this is true. Fish, they fertilize their eggs externally. In other words, the female lays the eggs, and the male comes along and spreads its zera on top of that. That's how they have fish. I think to have silt to hold the eggs, I guess certain egg dag tame would not hold in this silt. So perhaps that's the hezbollah. But either way, the reason why the rib above only has kosher fish is because since this tina, it's not marbetina, the tray for fish are not able to procreate over there. That seems to be the reason. Okay. Amar Ravina, says Ravina, ha'idna, in this day and age, ha'idna, the Shavchei bei Nahar Guza uNahar Gamda, into the river above, into the river above. In this day and age, again in the time of the Gemara, there's the river Goiza and the river Gamda would come into the above river. Asiri, then the chilik fish that's there, the Sachanta would be asa. You know why? Because again, with the other rivers, they taka would procreate. They had enough silt to procreate, and therefore now you have to worry about the mixture of the tray for fish with the chilik. Rabbi, this is again discussing fish. Now the Gemara says in Kuf Chav Zayin in Masechta Chulin, fellas, for every animal on the land, there's a corresponding animal in the sea. This is very fascinating. Kuf Chav Zayin in Chulin. So Hay Chamra Diyama. So we have a chamor that lives on the land. There's one that lives in the sea. So it's called the chamor of the sea. That's a kosher fish. Tayridiyama, but a tayridiyam is asir. That would be asa, right? That would be asa. Okay. It would be tameh. V'simanecha tameh. The tameh animal tahar is a tar fish, because the donkey is a tameh animal, but it's a tar fish. Tahar, the ox, which is a tar animal, tameh what is a tameh fish. Ravashi says, Shavar Nura Shari, a fish that's called shvar is permitted, and kedash nura is asa. The simanach is kodesh lashem. We know something that's kodesh lashem is you can't have enough from it, right? It's only for kodesh baruch hu. So too the kiddush noira, in order to go ahead and contrast from the shvar noira, the kiddush noira is similar to the word kodesh, and therefore that's a siman that you know you can't have that. Ikadiyam, the others say kivar nuna asar. It's not the shvar nuna is kosher, but it's not the kaddish nuna that's asar. It's the kivar nuna. The simonach, what's the siman? Is kivrei of the kechavim. They say this kivrei, the kvarim of kvar is like a guy. So too what the kvar is asar. Rabbi Akiva iklei leginzik. Rabbi Akiva came to the town of Ginzik. Aisul lekamei hahu nuna davi dami lechipusha. They bought a fish called a nuna that was similar to a chapusha, which is a tray for fish. Chafya bidikula. Rabbi Akiva covered it with a basket, and the fish was flapping around. And chazi bei kalpe b'shaya. He saw that on the walls of the basket. He saw the scales and and it was kosher. You see that from these gemaras that it could have fish scales in the water, and when they come out of the water, it doesn't have it. It could have not in the water, comes out of the water over here. So that it's interesting that he had a bedika, he had a test to make sure that it had scales. Rabbi Ashi iklu litam duria. Rav Ashi came to the Tam Duria. Aisla kamei ahununu. They bought this fish. The havi dami lit salufka. It was similar to a talufka. The talufka is the Ashkol touches an eel. Nakde lahade yuma. He picked it up against the sun. Chazi the havi beit simche. He saw that it had little. He saw that it had little scales, Vishaya, and permitted it. Ravashi ikla lahu asra. Ravashi came to a place. Aisi l'kamei nuna. I bought a fish. Davidami l'shap nuna, which it looked like a shap nuna, which was a kosher fish. And chafya b'mishkale chiyuva. He put a white net over it. And chazi be'kalfi Vishaya. He saw it had scales and he matted it. Rabbi bar Avchana ikla l'akra the agma. Came to a place akra the agma. Krivule tzachanta, they bought the chilik fish, that again the fish you don't know, had mixed in with trafris. Shamiluhu gavra the havikori le bote. He called that, wasn't calling it a tzachanta, he called it a bote. Now bote is a not kosher fish. So Amar said Rabbi Rachana, with the kokori le bote, since he called it bote, shmami no davar tummy is paid. There must be something tummy in this fish. Therefore Rabbi Rachana didn't eat it. The safra in the morning, where they could, I guess he had a chance to be able to look at it, ayin ba. And Ashik Bey Davatame, he found something mixed in what wasn't kosher. And Korean Nafshe, he called upon himself, no bad thing can happen to a tzaddik. We spoke this out, fellas. When it comes to my cholas isuris, HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes ahead and stops a person, a tzaddik, from eating it. Comes to mind the Gemara in Gittin, where a certain Tana placed Amy Yisrael b'toich beiso. He placed too much fear in his house. And what happened was the servants dropped the food, and it got ruined, and they were so scared he was going to yell at him, and they went and cut off a piece of a live animal, which was Eva min achai. They cut off a piece of a live animal, which was Eva min achai, and they cooked it, and they were going to feed it to him. The Gemara says, Sal Kedaita that he'd eat it. So he goes, no, he almost ate it. So you see, when it comes to my cholas isuris, Kadosh Baruch Hu protects. I also comes to mind with the water with the bugs, that I filtered the water in my house because they found these organisms that you can't see, but they were machmir, that they're asa. So they say, how's it possible that Moshe would drink all these years? And they found that Moshe had a filter in his house. It's just, you can't make this stuff up. So when it comes to my cholas yisuris, it says, we said that a grain of chiltis. So what's the problem with the grain of chiltis? Because the guy would cut it with a knife, and that knife had shamnunis, it had treif of fat on it. Even though nice and tam is mutter, so therefore you should be able to eat it, because whatever tam it gives is pogam, it's blemished. It says Gemara agav churcha de chiltisa, since the chiltis this was very very sharp, machlele shamnunis, it makes the fat sweet. So we have the concept, guys, of nice and tam lefgam. If it's something that's sharp, right, it could go ahead and make it sweet. So you see over here such a concept that it could sweeten it, and therefore it would be asa. Okay. Avdi the Reb Levi havi mazvin chiltisa. the servants of Rabbi Levi, they were serving this chiltis. Again, we were choshid that you cut it out with a knife. That's treif. However, when Levi died, Asla came in Rabbi Yochanan. Amalei malam mizavne. Could we buy from the servants? Could we buy the chiltis? So Amalahu Rabbi Yochanan said, "Avdei shel chava hariu kechava." An eved of a chava is like a chava. Okay, now a chava is a person who had been checked out. He was makabel chaveris. That means when it comes to Chumas Umaisa, he's squeaky clean. When it comes to kashrus, he's squeaky clean, right? So therefore, he's been checked out, and so therefore, since Reb Levi was what he was a chavel in the schiltis, who adin his eved would not have to be rechecked. We believe the eved. Rav Huna bar Minyumi zoven techilta me anshe debesa. Rav Huna, but he would go ahead and he bought chelis from the people of the house of Rav Am Chasida. So Rav Am Chasida, right? He was an expert, and he was trustworthy when it comes to chelis. And his wife, it says me'inshe debesa Rav Am. Inshe debesa meaning Rav Am wasn't there anymore, and you want to know if you can be slimek that this chelis is really chelis, or maybe Kala Elon. Kala Elon was the fake that didn't come from the chilazon. We had the discussions, chilazon, the cuttlefish, or it's the snail Murex trunculus, you might recall. And this Kala Elon was cheap, it was a forgery. And so you needed a chaver on chelis as well. You needed to have a person that you can, the Yiddish word is a good word, faleslach, a person that's faleslach, right? That you can trust the person. So was the wife of Rav Huna, is the wife of Rav Amram Chasida, could Rav Huna bar Miyumi be slimich that she was faleslach? Asla Kamei Rav Yosef, and Lehavi Biyadi, Rav Yosef didn't know the answer. Paga Bei Rav Chana Chayata, Chana, he was a Chayata, he was a tailor. He met Rav Huna bar Miyumi, Amalei, and he said to him, Yosef Anya Minalei, where would Yosef know this from? I don't know what Pshat this Gemara is. Where would poor Yosef know this from? Anyway, I had such a thing. The Zavni Techilta Miyanshe the base of the Ravno, Achur, Rav Chia bar Abba. I bought Chelis from the wife of Ravno, the brother of Chia bar Abba. He asked the commander of Masna and came from the Masna. He didn't know the answer. Asked the commander of Yehuda Miagunya. He came from the greater Rabbi Yehuda. Amali Nafal Yadi. It's a good thing he fell into my hands. Hachi Amashmuel. Eishes Chava Hariuk Chava. So we have two limudim. We have one, the eved of a chaver is like a chaver, and the wife of a chaver is like a chaver. So once the chaver has been going ahead and was makabel chaverus, it's passed down to his eved, it's passed down to his wife. The falestach, you can go ahead and be samich on them. The Tana Rabbanan, this is a raya. Eishes chaver harihu kechaver. The wife of a chaver is like a chaver. Avdei shel chaver harihu kechaver, which is we just said chaver shemeis. Ishto banov b'nei beisa harim b'cheskasan. And they all keep this chazaka of being believed. Until they would do something that they would lose their ne'emanis. But until they do something, then they'll be believed. Let's say it's a chatzah that's muchzik, in this chatzah they sell tcheles. The place has a chazaka. It has that chazaka until what? Until it becomes what? Pasel. Eishes ha'aretz, divide in halachas of chaver. Eishes ha'aretz, shenises l'chaver. So the chaver, he's makabelis chaveris, and now you have a woman coming into the marriage, and she has not as adarabin. She's the wife of an amoretz, so she has no establishment as well as someone you can trust. V'chein bita amoretz shenisis lechaver, or the wife or the daughter of a chaver of an amoretz that marries to a chaver. V'chein avdei shel amoretz shenimcha lechaver, or the eved of an amoretz that's sold to a chaver. Kulan tzrichen lekabel divrei chaveris. They would all have to go ahead and go through the test by Bezdin and be makabel chaveris. They have no chazaka. Their chazaka is from Amaratzis, right? So just the fact they're marrying into it doesn't automatically make them a person royal lakach. They would have to go ahead and be makabel. Aval eishes chavesh in Islam aretz. Now the eishes chavesh, she has a chazaka, and she's marrying an amoretz. The chen bita shel chaver, who also has the chazaka, she Islam aretz. The chen avde shel chavesh she nimcha le amoretz. They don't have to go ahead and be makabel. They have the chazaka from their previous state. They have to go ahead, since they're getting into a marriage with somebody who's not faleslach, they would have to go ahead and reestablish themselves. She was married, when she was married to a chaver, she would tie his tefillin on his hands. This, I guess, a euphemism. And Nises Lamoiches, when she was married to a Moiches. Now, tax collectors, these guys were the biggest lowlives in the Klal Yisrael, right? These people were, they would steal. So then, so it's saying when this is to support Rabbi Yehuda's din that the wife of a chaver, if she marries an Amaretz, she has to go ahead and reassert herself. Where do you see this? Because when a woman's married to a chaver, she helps him put on tefillin. When she's married to a low-life moicha, she helps him with his deceitful receipts. So you see that who she's married to affects their what their status. So that's like Rabbi Yehuda, not like Rabbi Meir. Amarav. Chavis, that stands for, it stands for, we'll see in a second. Chavis is what is b'choisem echad with one seal. Champag muta b'choisem echad. Okay, so chavius is asa b'choisem echad. A chavius is one of those four things that is asa with one seal. You need two, and champag is muta with one. Okay, what does ches beis yud stand for? Chalav is the ches, basar is the beis, yayin is the yud is the yayin, and tuf is the chelis. That's now if you look at the Hamid beis, if you look at the top Rashi, asurim b'choisem echad, the asur one choisem, the shaga b'yarav d'kchavim. If you send it in the hand of the d'kchavim, with chayish they're going to counterfeit it. That they're going to go ahead and break it. The kivin the basar with chelis the meim yikarim, since meat and chelis are what are yakar, tarach u'misayif lahachlifan. They'll trouble themselves to go ahead and make forge it and switch. Va'alayayin l'naschay va'acholav parach l'kamon. In other words, I understand all of them. I understand basar, yayin, chelis. I don't understand chalav, but that's what I do understand. Okay, guys, you with me so far? Okay now. What's champag? Chilsis. Morius, Pas, Gevina, Mutarim b'choisem echad. They're mutar b'one choisem. Now you see, guys, look at the fourth line down in Rashi. Pas l'may nechush, klal loy garsinan hacha. We're not goyris these words here. El b'milsa de Shmuel garsinan. We're goyris later on in the words of Shmuel, right? Because and so right now we're going to skip a little bit. These words Rashi tells us are going on Shmuel; they're not going on Rav. This is fascinating. So if you go down, Rav, Maishnav Gevina, let's pick it up over there. So Maishnav Gevina, the Leitorach Mizayef. They're not going to trouble himself to go ahead. There's no reason for expecting the guy to go ahead and make a switch. It's not expensive. It's not expensive. It's not yayin. It has nothing to do with yayin. So why in the world will we consider that he may make a switch in the milk, in the chayat, right? So it's leitarach mizayef chalav nami leitarach mizayef. So Amar Rav Kahana afik chalav va'ayil chatichas dag. The ches doesn't stand for chalav. It stands for chatichas dag, a fish piece. Okay, so in other words, we're splitting that around. We thought it's chalav. We're taking out the chalav and we're saying that what? It's a chatichas dag. She'ein bas simin. For the Gemara, if that's the case, hainu basa. That's the same as the beis. What's the difference in meat or fish? Again, it's dover. It's not a yaridea dikadin. It's a isavehet dikadin. So I'm going to trey gavni basa. There's two types of basa. Shmuel Amar Shmuel says, beis yud taf. Take out the ches altogether. Asa b'choisim echad. It's asa with one choisim. And machag is muta b'choisim. So he takes out the ches, Shmuel, and he takes out the pay, right? And he takes out the pay, right? He takes out. So now, muta b'choisim echad. Basa yain tcheles asurim. In other words, he doesn't deal with he doesn't have a ches as a piece of dag. B'choisim echad. Mur yischulz is gevina mutarim b'choisim echad. He doesn't mention pas. The Shmuel chatichas dag shein but simin hainu basa, right? The trey gavni basa lo yarminon. Therefore, he does not say what? He does not say the ches. He doesn't say the ches because I don't have to bring in two fish. Now, he took out the pay. So let's go back. Now we go to the second line, guys. That by the aleph in the bach. Now, why did he take out the pay? In Mafbag, he took out the pay. Pas lamay nechesh. What are you worried about pas? Look, imishum ichlufe kriri bichamimi. If you're worried about going ahead fresh versus not fresh, cold versus hot, made the idea, right? You know. The chiti, the sare, nami made the idea. If he's going to switch barley for wheat, Iki adade, if they're both the same, even the ikka chaysim echad, like Tarv Mizayef, so there's no reason, and therefore I could take out the pay. So whereas Rav had 4, Shmuel had 3. He took out the ches in what in Chavyet, and he took out the pay in Champag. Okay, because there's nothing to worry about. The cholav is nothing to worry about. The chatichas bug we already discussed basa, and he took out the pay because there's no shaykhs that no concern that he's going to take out what he's going to make a counterfeit on the bread. So be careful. And the Gemara guys should underline that Rashi over here because it makes no sense. Otherwise, Rav was not discussing pas. Shmuel was discussing pas. Tanrabanan. Ein loichin yemach machag. Right. What is that? Besurya. In Surya, you can't go. Right. Now, what are we speaking about over here? Let's see Rashi for a second. Ein loichin yamach machag shechenvonim shebesurya chashidim. These are Jews. They're storekeepers. And we're choshid like kapti alef me'ivlei site michshol. Then when they're not makbid on selling tarfis to others. Umizavni Yisrael devorim shalachim in oiv dekechavim, and they'll go ahead and sell to Jews things that they bought from a guy. Miu inu gufayu, they themselves like achli isur, they won't eat isur. When it comes to myself, I'm a big person. When it comes to you, I don't care. Hilkach. If you end up eating in his house, so fascinating, right? This guy is not faleslich when it comes to selling, but when on his own cheshbon, he's going to be makbid. So now with that in mind, let's begin. Ton Rabbanan. In loichin yemach mechag b'suya. What's yemach? Yayin, v'loy moryus, v'loy chalav, v'loy melach sal dunris, that's the mem in machag, v'loy chilsis, right? V'loy gevina, you can't go ahead and buy these from them. Element mumchim, only from experts. For kulon, however, all these merchants of Surya in this arich eitzel balabayis, if you end up next to them, muta, Messiah b'shuv ben Levi, then b'shuv ben Levi, shagala balabayis lebeisai muta, right? If balabayis sends to his house, it's muta. My time, balabayis leshavik hetera of achli surah. He's not going to go ahead and he has a chance to eat heter and eat this, so he's not going to eat issa. So if he sends you something, the balabas sends you something, he's going to send you from his own house. So to buy from him, you can't. If he sends you as a gift, then you could. Because again, if he sends you a gift, he's standing from his own house, and in his own house, he's makbid on the achila. We said melech sal konduris is what? Melech sal konduris is, Mishnah said, is muta behana, but it's also b'achila. What's the chashad of this melech sal konduris? What are we worried about? This melech sal konduris, somehow we're worried something about this melech sal konduris. Some of you Yudah Shmuel, melech shekol sal kondurye roimei oichlin aisa. It's salt that all the bakers of Rome eat, right? So now what happens? They eat it, and it seems that they mixed in different types of fish. Tanabanon, melech sal konduris shechayra sur. If it's black salt, it's also levana mutarvis. It's white, it's muta. Div Reb Meir, Rabbi Yehuda oimed the opposite. Levana is a sur shechayra muteres. Rabbi Yehuda ben Gamliel, a third sheet, the Mishram Rebbe Chanina ben Gamliel oimer zevezer is sur. Both white and black are asa. What's the reason? Amar Rabba Rachana Amar Bechanon. The Divrei Oimer Levana Asura is why? It's because Kirv Dagim Levana Tmei Marumba. They take the innards of a white tray for fish and they mix it in. You can't see it. The Divrei Oimer Shechayr Asura, the one who says the black is Asa, because Kirv Dagim Shechayrim Tmei Marumba. They take the fat insides of a black fish. The Divrei Oimer Zubazu Asura. They're both the black and white mixed in there. Amar Rabba Vo Mishum Reb Chanina ben Gamliel. Right. There was an old man in our neighborhood. He would go ahead and take lard, and he would go ahead and smear it on this salt, these blocks of salt. So these are either the reason it's fish in it, or so it's therefore why it's mutabachila, but it's also behana. No, it's opposite. It's also behachila mutabachna. I don't know what I was thinking. The Mishnah concluded and repeated, the question is why repeat that? So Gemara says mute mai. Why did they repeat it? It must be to exclude something. It says more lechizkiya lemute biyadua. According to Chizkiya that we began today's share with biyadua. Guys, go back to the beginning of today's share. If you go to 3 lines from the bottom on Lamed Ches Lamed Beis, ukvashim shedarkan losis b'tocha yayin hama Chizkiya leishanu ela shedarkan avol biyadua asa afilu bahana. Right. So the Me'ute Chizkiya who says asa bahana, this would not be asa bahana. Right. That this would not be asa bahana. The Me'ute biyadua according to Chizkiya it wouldn't be asa bahana. Right. Rabbi Yochanan, Mutei Murius Ugavina based in Yonki. And according to Rabbi Yochanan, who says that Murius and Shiza based in Yonki is what is Asabahana, who stomach Reb Meir, who says it's Asabahana. Mute those shitas that what it's not Asabahana, it's Asabachila, it's not Asabahana. Okay, tomorrow we'll stop over here because it gets into the whole sugya of Chol of Akum and Bez Hashem.